104. That's how many enemy aircraft the F-15 Eagle shot down in combat. 104 confirmed kills. 0 losses, not a single Eagle downed by an enemy aircraft in nearly 50 years of war. Israeli pilots, American pilots, Saudi pilots, against MiG-21s, MiG-23s, MiG-25s, MiG-29s, the best the Soviet Union ever exported. The score never changed, until 3 weeks ago. And what ended that record wasn't an enemy interceptor or a hostile missile. It was a friendly fire incident involving a coalition partner aircraft. To understand the F-15, you have to understand the humiliation that built it. In Korea, American fighters killed 13 enemy aircraft for every one they lost. By Vietnam, that ratio had collapsed to 1.5 to 1, barely better than a coin flip, against a smaller, cheaper, slower aircraft. The culprit was philosophy. The F-4 Phantom had been designed on the assumption that the dogfight was dead. Missiles were the future, so the F-4 had no gun. And it was getting eaten alive by MiG-21s that weighed half as much and could turn on a dime. The Air Force looked at the Vietnam kill ratio, looked at the F-4, a plane they'd sent into knife fights armed exclusively with the aeronautical equivalent of a strongly worded letter, and said, never again. Then, in 1967, the Soviet Union unveiled the MiG-25 Foxbat, Mach 2.8, enormous, terrifying on paper. American intelligence called it a next-generation superfighter, and the FX program, which became the F-15, was immediately accelerated. McDonnell Douglas won the contract in 1969. The mandate: build the most capable dedicated air superiority fighter ever designed. Not a compromise. A weapon built for exactly one purpose. The numbers are genuinely absurd. The F-15 has a thrust-to-weight ratio greater than 1, meaning its engines produce more thrust than the aircraft weighs. It can climb vertically and still accelerate, like a rocket that also carries 8 missiles and a Gatling gun. Wing loading was kept deliberately low for sustained high-speed turns without bleeding energy. The radar, the AN/APG 63 pulse Doppler, gave it genuine look-down shoot-down capability, tracking low-flying aircraft against ground clutter. That closed the escape route Soviet pilots had been counting on. And the cockpit canopy gave the pilot nearly unrestricted visibility in every direction. In close combat, seeing first is the margin between a kill and a coffin. The design rule: not a pound for air-to-ground. No bombs, no attack avionics. Every engineering choice optimized for one mission. The result was an airframe so structurally overbuilt it once landed safely after losing an entire wing in a mid-air collision. That actually happened. We'll come back to that. The combat record didn't build slowly. It started with a statement. June 27, 1979. Israeli F-15 is intercepted. Syrian MiG-21S over Lebanon. 5 MiG-21S went in. 5 came down. 0 Eagles lost. The record was open. Over the next 3 years, Israeli Eagles racked up kills over Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley. MiG-21s, MiG-23s, even the MiG-25 Foxbat, the whole program had been built to counter. In the 1982 Lebanon War alone, Israeli F-15 and F-16 downed more than 80 Syrian aircraft in several days of fighting. Not one Eagle lost in air combat. Desert Storm, 1991. F-15Cs accounted for 36 of the 39 American air-to-air kills of the war. MiG-29s, MiG-25s, Mirage F-1s, the score kept climbing. At some point, the Iraqi Air Force was essentially donating aircraft. The F-15 did not discriminate. Fighters, cargo planes, trainers, helicopters. If it had wings and the wrong transponder code, the Eagle considered it a professional development opportunity. If you're enjoying this video, remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to see our upcoming videos. If there is anything you would like for us to work on, post it on the comments. And then, there's the story I promised you. 1983. Israeli F-15 pilot Zevi Nadivi collides mid-air with an A-4 Skyhawk. The collision shears off nearly the entire right wing. By every law of aerodynamics, that aircraft should have immediately entered an unrecoverable spin. There is a specific biological event that occurs when a fighter pilot looks to his right and discovers that his wing used to be there. We cannot confirm what happened inside that cockpit, but speaking for everyone watching this right now, we have a pretty solid guess if it were us in that seat. Instead, Nadivi engaged full afterburner and flew it back to base. He landed, safely, with one wing, because the F-15's fuselage generates roughly a third of its lift at high speed. That structural excess, built in by engineers who refuse to compromise, is what kept him alive. Kosovo, 1999, 4 Serbian MiG-29s, 4 more kills. The counter reached 104, then it stopped. Not because the Eagle left service, not because no one was flying it into combat, because for the next 26 years, nothing that came up against an F-15 survived long enough to shoot back. February 28, 2026. The US and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran under Operation Epic Fury. Iran retaliated immediately, launching drones and ballistic missiles across the Gulf at bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. Coalition air defense systems were running at absolute capacity. Slow Shahed drones threading through the same corridors as fast-moving coalition jets. Ballistic missiles overhead, an electromagnetic environment nobody had fully wargamed. This is where identification friend or foe, IFF, becomes critical. On paper, it's elegant. A radar pings a target. The transponder fires back an encrypted code. And if it matches, you're friendly. In a training exercise, it works. In a drone and missile saturation environment, it becomes a fragile tether. On paper, IFF is foolproof. You squawk a code, the radar reads it. Everyone goes home for dinner. The system was clearly designed by people who had never tried to run a digital handshake during a drone swarm with ballistic missiles inbound. In those conditions, foolproof requires a very specific definition of fool. At 11:03 p.m. Eastern on March 1st, 3 F-15E Strike Eagles went down over Kuwait. CENTCOM confirmed friendly fire. Subsequent reporting identified the responsible aircraft as a Kuwaiti F-18 Hornet, which appears to have fired 3 missiles, taking down all 3 Eagles. All 6 crew members ejected safely and were recovered. Here's what the investigation will focus on. The F-15E has no missile warning sensor for infrared-guided threats. A radar missile lights up the warning receiver. An IR heat seeker like the AIM-9 Sidewinder gives you nothing. No tone. No alert. The investigation will determine what combination of factors led to the misidentification. And it's not a new problem. In 1994, US Air Force F-15s shot down 2 US Army Black Hawks over Iraq, killing 26 people. Same failure mode. Complex battle space. IFF breakdown. Decision made in seconds. The failure mode was the same. A complex congested battle space. IFF that didn't resolve the picture in time. And a decision made in seconds with incomplete information. The 104-0 record was built against enemy aircraft. What ended it was the geometry of a modern coalition operation. A drone swarm, ballistic missiles, overlapping corridors, and an IFF system under conditions it wasn't designed to handle. Drones don't always squawk IFF. Hypersonic missiles give even less reaction time. The F-15 didn't lose to a better fighter. It lost to a problem the entire aviation community is still working to solve. Here's where the story doesn't end with a funeral. The F-15EX Eagle II is not a warmed-over Cold War jet with new paint. Fully digital, fly-by-wire controls. AN/APG, 82 AESA radar, the same class that defines 5th-generation fighters. A 12,000-hour service life that keeps it flying into the 2040s. And a weapons payload that the original Eagle designers would have found genuinely unreasonable. The Air Force looked at the most lethal air superiority fighter in human history. A plane that had been flying since Gerald Ford was president, and decided the correct response was to make it angrier. It isn't replacing stealth, it's complementing it. Where the F-22 and F-35 penetrate defended airspace unseen, the Eagle II operates as a weapons truck at the edge of the threat envelope, carrying missiles. The stealth jets are physically too small to fit. In a world defined by beyond visual range engagements, that payload is a strategic argument all by itself. 104-0. The streak ended, not to a better adversary, but to the fog of a coalition war that nobody's navigation systems were fully ready for. The record will carry an asterisk now, but the aircraft itself. The aircraft is still in production, still being exported, still being upgraded, and based on what's flying in the Gulf right now, still very much in the fight. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You may also want to check out one of our other videos. Until the next one, over and out.